Did you just wake up?
Wake up, wake up.
The Big Show
Oh, wow, that's big.
with Glenn, Angel and Tim
I know which one I'd rather wake up looking at.
on Kiss 92.
Good morning and happy Wednesday. And this is the time we go live on Facebook and YouTube. And we have a very special guest in the studio right now. It's Minister of State for Ministry of Manpower and Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, Mr. Dinesh Vasu Dash. Welcome into the studio.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Of course. I mean, the National Day rally, it just happened on Sunday, and everyone's been talking about it since. A lot of stuff went down. There was a lot of workplace policy chat. There was a lot of childcare chat, a lot of family chat. So today, that's why you're here, because we want you to kind of break it down and tell us, what parents can expect and what people can expect in general. Maybe we can go ahead with the first question, Tim.
Absolutely, and I got to tell you, Moss. I mean, as the rally was going on, my wife kept running into the to the bedroom because I was doing some work. And she was like, "Oh, we're gonna get more childcare. Oh, we're gonna get more financial support. Oh, this is great," because we've got an 8-year-old, right? So obviously, a lot of Singaporeans very, very excited about that. But I guess the first thing we're going to talk about would be the financial support, okay? And we want to know, does receiving this steady financial support until a child turns 17, including, for those who don't know, the $2,000 in annual child credits, does it help to reduce parents' financial stress and also to give young couples more confidence about having children?
Yeah, so firstly, I think, having children is really a very personal type of a decision. So no amount of cash subsidies will encourage everybody. But the whole idea would be to see, well, what else can we do to support the child, not just at the early ages of, the child's life, but throughout the child's life, all the way till, let's say, 16 or 17 years old. And that allows for options, that allows for support to the parents, support to the children, allows them to do their education, etc. And I think that is what the change this time around is. So it's quantum that has increased. It's also the length of time to support the child. This then brings a slight worry of some of our parents who may be concerned that, if they bring a life to earth, right, how do I support this person? Do I have the necessary financial support in doing so? And the government hopes to provide that one less worry for new parents especially.
Yeah, because raising children is not a cheap thing. We know that.
Especially if you're an older parent as well. Like, for instance, my wife and I, when we decided to have a Charlie, we had him, relatively older in our lives. Only when we were 40, then we had him. And I think a lot of parents, they always wonder, we're going to get that support when the kids are younger. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to support them once they get older. So now that we get that financial support till 17, I think that helps to allay our fears a little bit.
That's right. So again, the child goes through different phases, and at every phase the parent goes through a different journey too, and hence the whole idea would be to see what else can we do to support parents in this journey. It is really a journey from the moment you're born, you start. But I wanted to highlight that the joys of parenthood, which is really what this plan hopes to also achieve. There's no amount of money that you can use to circumvent the cost it takes to bring a child and to take care of children. Everybody has different requirements and so on. But I wanted to just go back to the whole point that children completes us as humans, as parents. And we wanted to say that while that is important and these are very personal decisions, what could the government then do to allow for further support, especially at different stages, early in life? I remember spending a lot of money on diapers, when kids were younger, for example. And then they go into, childcare, pre-primary, and they need support there too. And there was a whole host of additional support. Will take us some time to get there, but the whole idea would be to reduce the costs of childcare support that is given to parents, especially when you're working. You want your kids to be taken care of and so on. And of course, you want to be there as much as you can, which is why there's additional leave that's given, particularly in the formative years.
Yes, thank you very much. Please, you need to have this discussion with Glenn as well, because when I came in, right, and I was like, my favorite thing about it was the more childcare. And he was like, does that mean you're not going to be at work as often as you are next year? I don't think this should apply to radio DJs.
All right, let's continue this conversation with MOS Dinesh on The Big Show TV. You can join us on YouTube and Facebook. Just key in Kiss92 FM. We're going to be talking about whether the new initiatives are going to affect the number of children couples want to have. Right now, here's Rise with Get a Guitar on Kiss 92.
If you want something.
Oops, sorry.
So, no, you can keep your headphones on because we're still on Facebook and YouTube. So we carry on throughout
see.
the conversation. But okay, so I was talking about before it was like you would get a different amount for every child and all that. Now every child is receiving the same level of support, which is up to something like $17,000. $70,000 up until the age of 17. So with all children now receiving the same level of support, regardless of birth order, do you think this will affect the number of kids that people want to have?
Yes. So in all due fairness, the number of children one has, again, very personal decision, right? Some of us would be quite happy to be, spending the couple time for a while and then decide on kids later. But wanted to say a few things. First, it doesn't mean that, you want a child, you get a child straight away. Right?
That is true.
There is some work to be done, yeah.
Some work to be done. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it's biological. The older you are, the more complicated it can be. And hence the whole idea would be to start the journey as early as we can. So that is a very important point. Secondly, it's perfectly okay for a couple to spend some time alone together first, right? I spent a couple of years with my wife, just me and her alone, traveling and so on. But at some point when the relationship then moves to the next stage, you may want to consider first kid, second kid, and third kid. The key difference, frankly, is from moving from no kids to first kid.
Yep.
Right. That's when you realize, oh my God, I'm a parent.
Your life is like 360, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now your interests are put aside and you look out for your children and so on. So that is an important psychological step that people must be ready for. No amount of money, no amount of leave can cater
That's
for that.
true. Yeah.
So that's really the first step that we want to do. And once that happens, a lot of people will be hesitant for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the need to determine whether you have enough financial wherewithal, right, to be able to bring someone to the planet, assuming that everything works out well. Second, you want to spend time with the person. And that's your point that you mentioned earlier. So if I now spend time away from work, somebody else has to cover. So how does that equation work out? So that, as I said, it's not going to be just government policy that's going to solve this issue. And it's not going to be for people or individuals to also decide. It is a whole of society. I know it sounds a bit cliche, but it's really whole of society effort that makes a difference as to the current crisis of our TFR.
Yeah.
So the impact of a low TFR means that we are shrinking in population and at some point will become extinct.
Yeah.
That's a fact, right?
So we need the babies.
You
We
do
need
make the babies.
Yeah, we're aging,
Yeah, and that is and coupled with aging, so that's
Yeah.
going to be a double whammy.
Yeah.
And I used to be in aged care sector, and I've been looking at it. So it's kind of like one full circle coming back to dealing with
Children.
children and trying to encourage people to have children. So that is a very important first step that we have to take, right? Otherwise, we will start to shrink. So what's the issue of a shrinking population? So what if the population shrinks? But when the population shrinks, then economically you can't be strong because you can just look at countries
need a
like
new
Japan
workforce,
and so forth, where you then come to that situation where the economy then stagnates.
Yeah.
And when that happens, every one of us gets affected too.
Yep.
So it doesn't mean you need a increasingly or infinitely growing economy. There will be cycles, etc. But the whole idea is we don't need an additional further impediment to limit ourselves. That is the key that we're trying to do with this particular program. Now, having said that, it's not just Singapore that's facing this problem. Every industrialized country faces this, or somewhat advanced in the economy faces this particular challenge. So the idea would be, what else do we need to do to get past this? And it can't be government policy alone. It does take a village, really.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
And you need to find a way to get as many people across. Employers need to be supportive. Fellow co-workers need to be supportive, and so forth. It will come at a cost. But the difference this time, especially for the case of the childcare leave this time around, is that government is providing funding to employers. So it then allows the employers to then decide what they do with the funding. And that was the exaltation that PM had too. Don't keep the money. You should hire temp staff if you need to. Let's say the person goes away for 10 weeks because of maternity and shared parental leave.
Yeah.
So you say, well, 10 weeks is a very long time. You can't expect the remaining force to just take care of it, right? The workforce, you have to find ways to have
To plug that gap.
to plug that gap, get some part-timers, etc.
Yeah, I especially love the fact where, I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but during that National Day rally message, you know, when he's talking about the childcare, he looks straight at the camera and goes, "This is why we hope employers will support their employees when it comes to taking their childcare leave." But I think you touched on that. You know, a little bit earlier on. I mean, now, just because they've got the childcare leave, there is an old adage that says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink, right? And just because there is these avenues, these opportunities to take the childcare, the fact of the matter is, not everybody is going to take it. What do you think the biggest obstacles are to getting employees to actually utilize this childcare that is now being provided to them?
Okay, so firstly, the reason why the childcare leave was put in place, it was meant to allow parents to take care of children, especially when they fall ill, when they're not feeling, maybe they've worked from home day or study from home day, and you want the parents to also oversee. We also know that sometimes when the first kid falls sick, then the second kid
rest.
falls
Yes.
sick.
The whole
and,
household.
and everybody else falls
Yeah.
sick too. So it's not really the right policy lever to have. if-
Okay, sorry. I don't mean to cut you
No,
off.
no
We have
worries.
30 seconds going to traffic, and then
okay.
maybe when we go on air, Tim can briefly ask that question, and
Sure,
then we can pick it
start.
up
Okay,
again.
cool.
Sorry
No
about
problem. Yeah, I almost forgot that there are like songs in between, right?
Yes, that's right. That's what the cars are listening to now.
Yes.
I
Yes.
see. Yeah.
Feel so play a show before you go.
Kiss 92 traffic.
On Tampines Avenue 5 towards Avenue 1 after Simei Avenue, avoid lane 2 because of a broken down vehicle. Same situation on the SLE, a vehicle having trouble after Upper Thompson Road. If you spot anything else, you can WhatsApp us 8855
Kiss 92 traffic update brought to you by BYD. Head down to the BYD Seletar Mall Roadshow and EV Expo this weekend. Enjoy at least $8,000 in owner benefits. Visit us today. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, barely a week after the National Day rally, we have Minister of State for Ministry of Manpower and Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, Mr. Dinesh Vasu Dash, here in the Kiss 92 studio today, talking a little bit about the support measures that have been rolled out. And we were just talking about childcare, right? And how, sometimes, parents need this childcare, especially when they need to take, care of their kids who maybe have fallen sick. Like my wife and I always joke with our child. It's like, you bring back more ailments than homework. You're always falling sick. And obviously for parents who have more than one child, you're mentioning this on the Big Show TV, when one child gets sick, it's not like, after the child gets better, then everybody goes back to life as normal. No, then the other child falls sick as well.
We should start quarantining our children.
No. I used to do COVID, so let's not go there.
Okay, all right.
Okay, and this is obviously going to be something that will require parents to utilize, especially now, this extended childcare leave that they're given.
So the extension of childcare leave allows for parents to, be with their children, not only when they fall sick, but when they are, study from home days, homeschooling, etc. This is an important lever that parents can have to spend time with their kids when they really need them. And again, it's stacked in a way that's increasing in accordance to the number of children you have.
Yes.
And it doesn't go up linearly, right? Because sometimes, as you know, when one kid falls sick, the next one comes in not too far behind anyway. So the whole idea would be to try to balance it. And the key point here is to allow parents to spend time with their children without having to use their annual leave as
Yeah.
much as possible. Because previously we noticed that there were some not so healthy trends that they had to take leave, they have no choice, they have to use their annual leave. So we're trying to give that balance to parents, and that was really the main move of the childcare leave.
And you're also taking away the financial bit from the companies, the employers as well. So with the government fully funding statutory child-related leave, do you think this will help address concerns that employers and companies may view working parents as a liability? Because sometimes they do, right?
That's right. So the whole idea would be to keep that equation balanced between employees, employers, and the government. So at sometimes when you want more support for the employees, it's not really fair to just tell the employers to, just do that because that's the right thing to do. But government would have to come in as well to see what can we do to then help to smoothen the equation out. And in this case, what we've tried to do is to say, well, can we provide the funding to the employers? Why? So that the employers can then use that the funding that would have been there for the staff who had taken leave to hire a temporary staff to help to elevate the load. We all know that when one person goes on leave, the rest have to cover, right? As you can see here today.
Yes.
No
We're
offense,
talking
I
extra.
like Glenn, but I wish I could have met him too.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, finance is just one thing. I guess another concern that a lot of employers are going to have is disruption. I mean, yes, you may be able to pay somebody else to help cover, that person, but I mean, the training somebody new,
Yes.
there is going to be a little bit of readjustment.
That's true. So in certain sectors, you can be able to cover a bit better. Right? If you take a healthcare sector, you can get maybe a retired nurse or a retired doctor or a locum doctor, as they
knows,
call, who
yeah.
knows the idea, who have been there before, might be working the same environment, to then come back and then help. The same would happen to here too, right? If you've been in the radio's DJ in a station before, you'd roughly know how to organize yourself, and you can come in and quickly plug and play. Certain sectors a bit more difficult. So as I said, these are just the initial moves that we have. We have to think about how best to then operationalize them to also support employers to get the necessary headcount help that we can find. And in a small country like Singapore, it's not impossible to find ways at which we can match demand and supply.
Yeah.
There will always be folks who may be keen to do short-term jobs because they may have caregiving duties or something else, and then they come in and kind of fill the gaps. A bit like the flexi adjunct that the Ministry of Education has as well, where you've got teachers who can come in to help to boost up the teaching
numbers.
force at certain times.
Okay. Well, I mean, to that point, and this is something we'll cover, once we go back on the Big Show TV. We do want to talk about SMEs and businesses. Those already dealing with lean teams. How are they going to manage changes like this?
Okay, so join us on the Big Show TV, YouTube, and Facebook. The time right now is 8:22.
Kiss 92 Time Check, brought to you by
Okay, Moss. So, I mean, you were just mentioning, for example, in the healthcare industry and all that, but specifically things like SMEs, businesses with lean teams, how are they going to manage the additional childcare leave when they're already short-staffed? I mean, are measures already being thought out already from, at least from the MOM point of view?
Okay, so the best way to help the employers would be for the childcare leave to be supported by government, meaning there's funding provided by government. Then with that funding, the SMEs can then decide which way to go, right? Whether you want to employ part-time, whether do I find ways to kind of aggregate my requirements with other SMEs in the same sector so that there's a bit more mass. So there are many ways that the SMEs could then take the steps. What we are seeing right now is just really the first step of providing financial support, or the signal to provide financial support, so that the SMEs can be assured that my employee is not going to just disappear without there being a financial support given by government. So that's the whole idea, the first step. But at some point we've got to think about what else can we do, how else can we support them with with ready pools of temporary staff. Not so easy, because every SME will be different. Every SME has, as you said, specific requirements in their job scope, in their job place, and so forth, and it's very difficult to just quickly do a plug and play. So it would be different strokes for different folks. It will be a long journey, and we'll have to figure out how to unpack it slowly. But ultimately, it's important to realize that this is a national challenge. It is not a challenge that only employees face, only the government faces. All of us face, because if the population dwindles, there will be no SMEs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there is that other challenge that we have to deal with as well. So it's a bit of paying it forward to a certain extent without having to, deal too much with the bottom line of the SMEs.
And if the numbers dwindle even more, we don't even need to speak about children anymore, right? Now, speaking of children, parents with 3 or more kids under the age of 12 will receive up to 12 days of childcare leave. For someone like Tim, who has 1 child, I think it's 8 days, and then it goes on for 2 children, 10 and then 12, right? Do you think this is enough to help them balance work with the greater caregiving demands of a family that's that large?
Well, as a person with 3 children, I must tell you, it's not very easy, and some would argue that it's almost a logarithmic rise rather than just linear, right? The more kids you have, the more complications, different stages of life, etc. All of that is true. So we hope that the childcare leave can be one lever or one less worry that parents will have. We mentioned about financial, support
Yep.
the last time round. So beyond finances, time is another main support that's required, and we hope that this provides employees and parents with the necessary time at the point where the kids need that support, and that's the whole idea of what we're trying to.
I want to delve away. I mean, from this topic just for a little bit to talk about leave. I know we've been talking a lot about childcare leave, but I'm also wondering, right? In your experience, do you feel like Singaporeans suffer from leave guilt? Like, even if it's not childcare leave, even if it's medical leave, you know what I mean? In my experience, I see a lot of parents or a lot of Singaporeans, and they're sick, but they just feel guilty. They feel bad about taking leave, even when they need the time to rest, recover. Even when we tell them, hey, coming to work also means you run the risk of
Spreading
infecting
it,
somebody
yeah.
else and then disrupting the company even more. But somehow Singaporeans, I feel like they're so guilty. They don't want to take the leave. And maybe they're scared of how it reflects on them if they take some time off.
So we're not actually hard workers. We're just fearful.
Well, I thought we would have passed that after COVID, to be very honest, right? Because if you remember during COVID, all of us were like, the moment you have something, you better stay at home. Don't
Yes.
don't move around and all that. But we seem to have reverted back to the pre-COVID type of
Sneezing
days.
in the air and not
Yes,
covering our
not
faces.
having a mask.
Yeah.
So there are certain things, but going back to the point about guilt,
Yeah.
I think it's really a function of the workplace culture. And if you set the culture right, and if you say that, well, I would prefer the worker to have to be fit and fine, not so much for anything else. Of course, it's fulfilling to the worker, but the fact that you are productive, you feel enriched, you feel that you're able to do something, that then brings you a different type of satisfaction versus having to, luck yourself to the work because you feel that you have to be there.
Finish
if not,
something, yeah.
That's not the most ideal type of workplace culture. And given the state at where we are in terms of our development, I think we should have open conversations with our employers, and so too employers with employees,
Yep.
to then set the right culture. I mean, for me personally, even among the staff that are around me, I'll tell them, if you're sick, please go ahead and stay at home. Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Even if you think you think you're getting a sniffle and you just want to stay away, sure.
Yeah.
And the reason is because if they come down thinking that they're trying to help me, I might end up
Being
getting
sick as well. Yeah.
And therein lies the issue. It's not so much about, in my mind, whether they're coming in due to being compelled to do so, but it's really because of that guilt. And you want to say that it's actually okay. It doesn't mean that you're less productive. But at the same time, employers will suffer with the fact that there are some people who intentionally
They
malinger.
make use of that. Yeah.
And therein lies the other problem. So it's
Yeah.
always a fine balance. But I always say that employers would know the employees the best.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And if you have the conversations early, it's very important. It's the same with childcare.
Yep.
And childbearing too. If you know that you're going to be a father of the second kid, for example, informing your employer about the fact that this is going to happen, and I think you better start preparing early. I'll be away for X number of months. I'd rather be with my kid for the first 2, 3, 4 months, and thereafter I'll come back again. That allows the employer to then make the
Prep.
necessary preparations and steps.
Yeah.
So I suppose it should be reminded or rather all Singaporeans should be reminded that, we're in 2026,
Yes.
taking your allotted childcare leave or any leave that's been, given or granted to you, you should never feel like that should come as a detriment to your
Yes,
career in any
exactly.
way, right? Just because you take it,
It is
then
your
you have
right,
to
yeah.
compare yourself to someone who doesn't take as much leave and feel, that person's going to get promoted
Yeah.
or is going to be looked upon favorably because they don't take as much time off.
Yeah, but like Moss Dinesh said, it's about
Yeah.
having the conversation, and it's about workplace culture. If you have a boss that you can actually walk into his office and say, okay, this is going to happen, then it's easy, right? But not all employers are like that.
Not all, although quite a lot of employers do appreciate that because they
Yeah.
want to have that certainty, they want to know they can do their planning and so on. Not very many employers would say, okay, I'm going to give you a different grading for your year because
Yeah.
you took a lot more leave. Not many people do that. It's always a function of, what has the employee done to uplift the company. And the setting or their sales or whatever it may be.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's usually the approach that's taken.
So let's talk about childcare fees now. It was announced that it will eventually fall to $150 a month and infant care fees to $300. Every drop makes the ocean, right? But how much difference do you think this will make to families, particularly the low-income families and working parents?
Okay, so this is really a key lever because if you know that, when you put your kid for infant care and so forth, it's actually quite expensive.
Yeah.
And the ability to then reduce it to $150 and $300, it would be a welcome relief to many parents, and I think this is a right step that we are taking from a policy perspective. It would take us a bit of time to get there. It's not going to happen in the next 6 months or so. It will take a bit more time. Gradually we will get there. But the whole idea would be a step change in the approach towards child care services, where I think it will be, we are for the better. I think this is a correct positive step that we will take. For those who may have difficulty, spending that $150 or $300, additional support from government will also be there.
Okay.
The whole idea would be to see that if the parents are because they are working and they aren't able to then take care of their children, there should be other alternatives that's available to allow for some degree of child minding for the parents. Rather than the parents then say, okay, well, one of us stop working, and then let's just take care of the kid,
Okay.
and so on. I mean, some of them would do so because it's a personal choice, but we don't want to force that decision.
Okay. Pardon me if I'm not clear on this, but regarding the help that they're going to be getting for infant care, childcare, are there certain conditions or requirements in place, like the establishment, the childcare establishment? Does this only apply to the government ones, or
Yes.
even to the private ones, some of which can be a little bit more expensive?
This is only for the government-related
Childcare centers. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the BTO ballot chances. I think this was a big thing as well, because we've been hearing about people applying and getting rejected and not getting picked and stuff like that. So it was also announced on Sunday that the government is giving families, the ones with children, priority, more BTO ballot chances, and raising the BTO income ceiling to $16,000 from before. Now, do you think this will make it easier for young couples to settle down and start a family, or those who at least with a family already better chances, right, for the BTOs?
So for families who are starting up,
Yep.
often what happens is that you want to start with your own flat,
Of
right?
course,
You don't
yeah.
want to be with parents, or sometimes people may prefer to be independent on their own. Again, a personal choice. We used to have super long wait times for the BTO, but this time around we have been able to cut it down quite significantly. So when you make the decision to get married, again, it doesn't happen immediately after marriage that the children starts coming forward. So that gives you some time to then start planning for your flat. Now, that increased chances only means that the more children you have, the more likely you are to attain your flat in the places that you were interested in going to. So that provides for greater flexibility for parents. That gives you a bit more certainty. And the bigger your family is, the more chances you have, and therefore greater assurances. And you can be a bit more assured that you could go for a flat, and it could be of your the size that you prefer, and it will be a brand new flat as well.
So it's an extra ballot for every child that you have?
For every child,
Okay.
there'll be an extra ballot, which basically only means that your likelihood of landing the flat is much higher.
Yeah.
But I must add that this is not the only lever. There will be other levers as well. So watch the space.
Okay, more to come then. All right, we're coming out of news, going into traffic, and then we'll go on air for our last time. Yeah.
Sure.
Lake Ontario is one of the 5 Great Lakes of North America and borders both Ontario and the U.S. state of New York. Mr. Dominic LeBlanc, Canada's minister responsible for U.S. trade, says his country will not respond to social media posts by the U.S. administration.
Those were your news headlines from the Straits Times. Read more at straitstimes.com.
All the great songs in one place. Kiss 92. Kiss 92 traffic.
If you're traveling down the TPE towards the SLE, you would have noticed an incident after Tampines Avenue 7. Not quite sure what incident that is. Elsewhere on the BKE towards the PIE, a vehicle's broken down before the SLE. And on the BKE as well towards the PIE after Dairy Farm Road, another vehicle has broken down. Let us know if you spot anything else, particularly also something on Bedok North Avenue 3, an accident heading towards the PIE after Bedok Reservoir Road. Avoid lane 2. Let us know via WhatsApp 88550920.
Kiss 92 traffic update brought to you by BYD. Head down to the BYD Seletar Mall Roadshow and EV Expo this weekend. Enjoy at least $8,000 in owner benefits. Visit us today. Terms and conditions apply.
We've been talking to Minister of State for Ministry of Manpower and Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, Mr. Dinesh Vasu Dash, who has reiterated quite a number of times, no amount of financial support is going to make somebody want to be a parent or be ready to have a family if they are not already looking into that or they're not open to that idea. It'll certainly kind of help to alleviate some of the fears they may have. But we do want to ask you, is the cost of living, I mean, in your experience, the biggest reason young Singaporeans delay starting families? They want to start families, but maybe they feel like they need to delay it. Or do you think changing personal priorities and attitudes are just as important?
Well, to be honest, it's a bit of all, right? The fact that a lot of people today would want a stable career, they want everything to be in place. Then they start looking for their partner, and then they start thinking of having kids, and they want the best for their kids, and everything. This is all perfectly normal, and this is expected. And again, it's very personal decisions. Everybody decides on their own what they want to do, how many kids they want to have. Of course, doesn't mean you want to have X number of kids that you would have those X number of kids too. I wanted to just add that there are physiological challenges too, particularly for our ladies as they get older. It's a bit more complicated. But the whole idea would be to say, well, how can we start that journey early? What are the impediments that prevents our kids from, our parents from having kids? And what else can we do as a government? Now, it doesn't mean that there's a certain policy lever that when I switch it, naturally everybody just starts replicating.
Yep.
It doesn't work that way. Individual couples would have to then decide what's in their interest, what they want to do, and why they want to do it, and why they want to have more kids, and so forth. Employers have a part to play, community have a part to play, extended family has a part to play too, right? If you're the extended family and you keep asking, are you going to have kids, and when is your kids coming, and so on, that adds unnecessary stress as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, the parents, the older parents, right, who've been wanting and itching to become grandparents, now they've got so much to say to their young ones, going, see, so much support, when are you going to make me a granddad?
So sometimes these would result in unnecessary strains. The same would happen to a person who isn't married, right? They'll say, when are you going to get married, etc. But the whole idea would be to say, well, do it at your own pace, right? Get married at your own pace, have children at your own pace, and so on. But do remember that it is a journey that you need to take, and that start with the first step. Don't be too worried about too many stuff, because again, there's a lot of support that's already been provided for, and if there's a need to worry about every single thing under the sun, then you would not take that first step. But the ability for the immediate family, the extended family, government, community, society to all come together to support the family who's considering to have a kid or more kids, I think that's very important. That sends them the confidence that they need to then, they can move to that, make that step with great confidence, because they wouldn't have to worry too much about not being able to spend time with the kids, not being worried about that we wouldn't have enough financial support, and that the government is there to always be that backstop of sorts, to provide that support to our families, so that our young couples can move forward with confidence. And that's the whole idea that we are trying to do with this entire effort. It is a major reset. It is a major reset. And these policy decisions are significant. But we hope that this will then provide our young Singaporeans with greater confidence that you don't have to worry about your flat. You get a higher chance of getting it. You have significant financial support this time around, and so too for leave support.
Okay.
So I guess the moral of the story is, when you are ready, the government is ready to help you as well.
Well, that's why we're the number one government in the world.
That's right. Okay, just a final thought from you, MOS Dinesh. What do you hope us Singaporeans take away from this year's National Day rally, in a nutshell?
Well, the key takeaway, frankly, is the additional measures that have been put in place, either in terms of financial support, time that the families will have, HDB support in getting their BTOs, as well as child-minding childcare support. It provides a comprehensive view of supporting young families, especially families who are keen to have kids and to have more kids. The key takeaway is take that first step. Be confident. Don't worry. We are all behind you.
Okay, I like that. Well, thank you so much for spending your morning with us. It's been a great pleasure having you in the studio for the first time. We hope the next time you come back around, Glenn Ong will be here as well.
Yes.
And then you can help convince him to have kids.
Oh my goodness, that'll take quite a bit of persuasion. All right, we've been speaking to the Minister of State for Ministry of Manpower and Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, Mr. Dinesh Vasu Dash.